sweet like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I get enough.
Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're going deep into Canadian politics.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, specifically, like, what's going on with this Mark Carney win in the Liberal Party leadership race? You know, he was head of the Bank of Canada, right? And then the Bank of England.
Yeah.
And now he's a politician. It's crazy.
It is kind of wild, right? I mean, to go from, like, central banking,
Behind the scenes.
Yeah, totally behind the scenes, to suddenly being, like, front and center in Canadian politics.
That's true.
And the timing of it all, too, right?
Yeah.
With, like, U.S.-Canada relations being so
Yeah.
complicated these days.
It's like a real-life House of Cards episode or something.
Right.
But with, like, a way more economic-y twist.
Yeah, definitely.
So for anyone just tuning in, Justin Trudeau resigned as prime minister in January.
Right.
His popularity was kind of tanking, and the polls were pointing to a conservative win.
Yeah, it seemed like things were about to change big time in Canada.
Huge shift.
For sure. And then, boom, Mark Carney enters the picture.
I don't know.
And we're not talking about some random politician here.
Yeah.
You know, this is a guy who's dealt with global financial crises.
Yeah.
Like, it's his day job.
It's like they called in the big guns to put out a fire.
Yeah.
But this time it's a political fire, not just an economic one.
That's a good point. And it makes you think, like,
Yeah.
does this mean that people are kind of craving competence and experience more now?
Interesting.
Like, are they over all the,
Sound bites?
Yeah, the sound bites and just, like, charisma? Are people looking for substance?
You could be right. I mean, this is the same Mark Carney who led the UK through Brexit.
Oh, yeah, that's true. He's got experience with, like, the highest stakes negotiations.
Seriously.
Global economic turmoil. He's seen it all.
Maybe that's exactly what Canadians feel like they need right now.
Maybe so.
But we got to talk about the elephant in the room, right?
You mean?
The U.S.
Yeah.
I mean, this Axios article we're looking at, it really emphasizes how Trump's policies towards Canada.
Oh, absolutely. Trump's whole America First thing,
Yep.
Especially those tariffs he put on Canadian goods. It created so much tension.
A lot of tension.
And who could forget those comments about Canada being like the 51st state?
Oh, man.
Not exactly the best way to make friends, right?
No, not really.
But the interesting thing is all that tension actually seemed to help the Liberal Party.
You're kidding.
Yeah, their poll numbers actually went up after some of Trump's more controversial moves.
So you're saying Canadians were maybe looking for someone who wouldn't back down from a fight with the U.S.?
Possibly.
Someone who could hold their own on the world stage?
Yeah, someone like Carney with all his international experience.
It's true. He fits the bill. And then there's his victory speech.
Oh, yeah.
Where he basically addressed U.S.-Canada relations head on.
He did not hold back.
No, he did not. He talked about dark days.
Right.
And was very clear that Canada would never be part of the U.S. in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And then he even threw in a hockey metaphor.
Oh, I love it.
He said Canadians are always ready when someone else drops the glove. So what do you think all that tells us about how Carney might handle U.S.-Canada relations?
Well, it definitely seems like he's not afraid to stand up for Canada, even if it means disagreeing with the U.S.
That's for sure.
And we have to remember, he's coming into this with a really deep understanding of international finance and trade.
He's not just reacting emotionally or anything.
Yeah, not at all. He knows the complexities of global economics.
Yeah.
He knows how to play the game.
So we've got a new Canadian prime minister who's ready to push back against the U.S. if he has to, and he's got the economic know-how to back it up.
For sure.
But what does all this actually mean for Canada?
Yeah.
For its relationship with the U.S.?
Yeah, what does it mean?
And for you, dear listener.
That is the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
How will this all actually play out?
And that's exactly what we're going to explore in part 2 of this deep dive, so stay tuned. Okay, so we know Mark Carney can handle some tough situations, right? Like financial crises, Brexit, and now maybe a rocky relationship with the U.S.
Yeah, he doesn't shy away from a challenge, that's for sure.
But what could this actually look like? You know, what might actually change with him in charge?
Well, one thing we might see is a more assertive Canada, on the world stage. He's already kind of hinted that he's willing to push back against U.S. policies.
Yeah.
And his whole background in finance gives him some serious leverage when it comes to economic talks.
Okay, but how does that translate into, like, real policies? Could we see tougher trade negotiations or something?
It's possible.
What about Canada taking a more independent stance on things like climate change, where they've already differed from the U.S. in the past?
Yeah, that's definitely on the table.
Yeah.
I mean, look at what he did during the 2008 financial crisis.
Right.
He wasn't afraid to take big steps to protect the Canadian economy, even when other countries were doing things differently.
He did what he thought was best for Canada, even if it meant going against the grain.
Exactly.
So could we see that same approach in other areas, like environmental policy?
Could be.
Could Canada become even more of a leader in fighting climate change? Maybe even diverging further from U.S. policies?
Yeah, it's not impossible. And remember, this isn't just about being different from the U.S.
Yeah, right.
It's about Canada standing up for its own interests and values on the world stage.
It's about being pro-Canada.
Exactly.
But we can't forget that the U.S. is still Canada's biggest trading partner.
Sure.
And a close ally. So how does Carney balance being assertive with, keeping a good relationship with the U.S.?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Something that Canadian leaders have always had to figure out.
Yeah.
But maybe Carney's financial background could actually help here.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, he really understands how interconnected global economies are.
Yeah.
He knows that even when countries disagree, they still need to cooperate to succeed.
Makes sense.
Think of him like a chess player.
Yeah.
He can see several moves ahead. He might make a bold move, challenge the U.S. on something, but he's also thinking about the long-term consequences,
right?
How to keep things stable overall.
So it's not like he's going to just, throw down the gauntlet and walk away.
No, it's way more nuanced than that.
Right.
He'll choose his battles strategically.
Yeah.
Focus on areas where Canada has leverage or where Canadian values are really at stake.
Smart.
Yeah.
Okay, but what about the political situation in Canada itself?
Oh, yeah, good point.
Carney's leading the Liberals now, but there's still an election coming up.
Right.
How might his leadership and his approach to the U.S. affect those elections?
Well, it's hard to say for sure, but his win in the leadership race, it shows that people want what he's offering.
Yeah.
Canadians might be looking for someone who seems competent and steady.
Especially with everything going on in the U.S. right now.
Yeah, it feels like things are pretty shaky politically around the world.
For sure.
Maybe Canadians want someone who can, keep things on track.
Yeah, someone who's not going to get caught up in all the drama.
Exactly. And his focus on experience and getting things done could really appeal to voters who are tired of all the political theater.
It's like that thought bubble from Axios's Felix Salmon.
Yeah.
People want substance over rhetoric.
Totally.
You want someone who can actually solve problems.
Right. And who can blame them, really?
Exactly. And this leads to a really interesting question. Could Carney's leadership style actually represent a bigger shift in global politics?
Ooh, now we're talking.
Right. Could his focus on competence and experience be a sign that people around the world are looking for a different kind of leader?
It's an intriguing idea. Are we moving away from personality-driven leadership?
Yeah. Are we moving towards something more focused on substance?
Think about it. We're facing some huge challenges globally, right? Climate change, economic inequality, geopolitical instability.
Yeah.
Maybe what we need are leaders who are more interested in finding solutions than scoring political points.
And Carney, with his background in economics and all his experience handling complex international situations, he seems to fit that description.
He does.
But here's the thing. If he does win the next election, can he actually live up to these expectations? Can he actually make a difference?
That's what we'll have to wait and see.
I guess so.
But I think it's fair to say that his victory has brought some optimism to Canadian politics.
Yeah.
Maybe even a little bit of hope.
And maybe even beyond Canada's borders. I mean, if a central banker can become prime minister, maybe anything is possible.
No, that's a thought-provoking idea.
Speaking of thought-provoking ideas, let's think about how all of this relates to you, the listener, because let's be honest, Canadian politics might seem a little far removed from your everyday life.
It's true. But what happens in Canada often affects the rest of the world.
Exactly. So even if you don't live in Canada, you should still care about what's happening there.
Right.
But how does this all connect to your everyday life?
Well, for one thing, Canada's a major player in the global economy.
Yeah.
What happens there can affect everything from trade to investments to even the value of your currency.
So if Carney's policies lead to a stronger Canadian economy, that could have a ripple effect across the globe. It could boost trade, create jobs, and impact the prices of things you buy every day.
And we can't forget about Canada's role as a global leader on issues like climate change and human rights.
True.
The choices Canada makes under Carney's leadership could have a big impact on those issues too.
So even if you're not planning a trip to Canada anytime soon, what happens there matters.
Absolutely.
And who knows, maybe Carney's leadership will inspire similar changes in other countries.
Maybe so. Could his focus on competence and experience become a model for other leaders around the world?
It's a possibility and one that's worth watching closely. But for now, let's take a step back and recap what we've learned so far in this deep dive into Canadian politics. Okay, so let's do a quick recap of what we talked about in our deep dive into Canadian politics.
Yeah, good idea.
We started with that unexpected resignation of Justin Trudeau, and then the rise of Mark Carney, this big financial guy who's now leading the Liberal Party.
Like a total wild card.
Right. And we talked about how his experience with things like financial crises and Brexit could shape how he leads.
For sure.
We also discussed how he might make Canada more assertive on the world stage.
Yeah, especially when it comes to the U.S.
Remember those strong statements from Carney's victory speech?
Oh, yeah.
Dark days.
Yeah.
Canada will never be part of the U.S.
You didn't mince words?
Not at all. And we talked about how his understanding of global economics might let him push back against U.S. policies, but still keep a decent relationship.
Right. Got to find that balance.
Exactly. And we also touched on how his leadership could affect the upcoming Canadian elections and whether his focus on competence and experience will resonate with voters who are tired of political drama.
Yeah, people are tired of the back and forth.
Totally. And we even wondered if Carney's style could indicate a bigger trend in global politics.
Right.
A shift away from personality-driven leadership and towards a more substance-focused approach.
Interesting idea.
So much to think about. But before we wrap up, I wanted to go back to something you said earlier about Canada being a global leader on climate change.
Oh, right.
Do you think Carney's leadership could actually speed up progress in that area?
It's definitely possible. He's been pretty vocal about addressing climate change.
Yeah.
And his financial background could be really valuable in getting resources and putting new solutions into action.
True. He gets the economic side of climate change.
Totally.
And how green technologies can drive growth.
He's not just coming at it from like an ideological angle.
Right.
He sees the whole picture.
And remember, he's used to working on a global scale.
Oh, yeah, that's important.
He could be really important in bringing countries together to make international agreements and move towards a more sustainable future.
Fingers crossed.
Okay, so big things potentially on the climate front.
Potentially.
But what about other areas? Could his leadership have an impact beyond Canada?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about it. If Canada under Carney shows that focusing on competence and experience gets results, other countries might start doing the same.
It could be a model for a different kind of politics.
Exactly.
One that prioritizes solving problems and working together instead of division and gridlock.
We can hope.
So his leadership could be a test in a way.
Yeah, like a test to see if this new approach can actually work on a national scale.
And maybe even on an international level.
We'll have to see.
It's definitely something to watch. And who knows, maybe it'll even start a conversation about what we really want from our leaders.
Yeah, a good conversation to have.
Well, that's a perfect note to end on a conversation about what we value in our leaders, because at the end of the day, it's up to us, the citizens, to demand more from the people who represent us.
That's right.
To demand competence, integrity, and a real commitment to solving the problems we face.
Well said. And maybe Mark Carney's unexpected journey from central banker to prime minister will inspire people to believe that a different kind of leadership is possible.
It's definitely food for thought. And that's what we're all about here on The Deep Dive, giving you the information and insights you need to form your own opinions and have those important conversations. So, dear listener, we leave you with this. What kind of leadership do you want to see in the world? What qualities do you value most in those who have power?
Think about it, talk about it, and let's keep this conversation going.
Until next time, stay curious.
Sound the alarm. I'm coming up. We'll have a ball. I'm sweet like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I